What's up, Pitt fans? Welcome back to another Pitt mailbag here on the Post-Gazette Sports Now YouTube channel. He is Chris Carter. I'm Noah Hiles. And Chris, these spring months, or these spring weeks, I should say, they go by a little slower when there aren't a ton of games or anything to cover, right?
I'm not complaining, man. We
I'm
don't
not
have to.
either.
Like I'm okay not going to practice every day. As much as I enjoy it, like it's a great time when it's going, but it makes you appreciate when you have some time to just clean around the house, watch a couple things you've been read, pick up a book you've been meaning to do. So it's been nice to do that. But at the same time, there's always interesting things going on in college sports.
Absolutely. We're going to get right into it now. We got some questions, as always, from our viewers, our readers, and we'll start with one from Dan. Pitt's 2023 non-conference schedule must be one of the toughest in the country. What do you think their record will be after those 4 games? Now, before we start answering this, Pitt's non-conference does not go – it's not their first 4 games because their fourth game of the season this year is North Carolina, which is their ACC opener. They play Notre Dame Halloween weekend in South Bend, Indiana. So their 4 non-conference opponents are home games against Wofford and Cincinnati and road contests at West Virginia and Notre Dame. Carter, I'll start with you. What do you think their record is in that 4-game stretch?
I got them going 3-1.
Okay. Who's the loss to?
I think it's going to be Notre Dame. I think Notre Dame's in a bit like they're going to be in the second stage of their rebuild and trying to make things happen with their new coach. I think Cincinnati is going to be an exciting game, but them having them at home, I think will make that will help that balance out a little bit. They also have a brand new coach, so I think that's going to be. I think Pitt can hold their own in that one. West Virginia is a coin flip. That could be the one I think that's the one that's most likely to flip from a win to a loss in my book, but I still think West Virginia isn't as strong as Pitt right now, and I think that Pitt can go on the road and win that one in Morgantown. Notre Dame on the road, I just see that as being a really tough matchup, especially later in the year. I think both these teams will be playing well, but I think that's going to be, and they'll be coming off a road game just the week before against Wake Forest. I think that's a time when the Panthers just struggle. But I do think that, you don't have to worry about Wofford. They'll handle their business there. I think they handle their business at home in Cincinnati. So West Virginia and Notre Dame are the 2 tough ones, just being the road games.
I'll go 2-2. I think that Pitt, throughout Narduzzi's tenure, has proven to be a program that plays its best football later in the year. And that's for different reasons every single season. I think they win at Notre Dame, and I think that win that'll kind of be like the spark plug that reignites a team that got off to a slow start. The West Virginia game in Morgantown is going to be tough, and I think Cincinnati is not going to be an easy one either. So yeah, I'll say, just to play devil's advocate, I think all 4 of these are winnable football games. I wouldn't be shocked.
I agree with that. Yeah.
4-0. I also wouldn't be shocked if they went 1-3. I just think that 3 of these, they leave a lot of room for something random to happen. And that's why I'll go. I like Pitt's chances against their ACC competition a lot better. I think that, I wouldn't be shocked if they were to lose to Cincinnati and West Virginia and then beat Drake May and company by like 20 in their ACC opener at home. Or, like I said, start poorly and then rattle off wins over like Notre Dame and Florida State in back-to-back weeks. Like, that's just kind of how this program goes.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, I've been pretty clear. I think it's probably like an 8-4 team this year, maybe a 9-3 team if everything goes well. So yeah, I also will add that I don't think this is I don't think it's one of the toughest non-conference schedules in the country. I think that this is a tougher one than Pitt's had in a lot of recent years, but I think if you look around, there are some other teams that have a little bit more of a challenge in non-conference. Although I do like these matchups. They're not joke schedules here. So move on now. Nate wants to know, what is Phil Jurkovec's floor and ceiling? Could we see him replicate what Michael Penix Jr. did after transferring from Indiana to Washington, or is that asking too much? I'll start with this. That is asking too much. Michael Penix Jr. is going to be a first-round draft pick next year. Michael Penix Jr. was one of the best college football players in the country last year. He threw for 4,600 yards, 31 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and he did it in the Pac-12 where, there were some really good defensive backs he was going up against. He played some solid competition. And I wouldn't be shocked if Michael Penix Jr. was a finalist for the Heisman Trophy this upcoming year. I think he's not Caleb Williams. He's not Drake May, but he's not far away from either of those two guys who, if he didn't have two of the, I think, probably best quarterback prospects in the last decade as far as NFL talent goes, if they didn't have those two guys in his draft class per se, he probably would be the first overall pick. Penix Jr. is a stud. And this isn't me thinking that Phil Jurkovec stinks. I think Phil can play himself into having a really good season. I just don't think Pitt's offense will allow for him to throw for 4,000 yards. And I don't think he has the weapons necessarily to do that either. I don't think that that's how Pitt's going to win football games this year. I think that Phil Jurkovec can be exactly what Pitt needs him to be. He can be as good as we thought Keaton Slovis was going to be last year, and he wasn't. I'll put it like that. I think that he'll have less interceptions, more touchdowns, more yards than Keaton last year, but he's not going to be first team All ACC, let alone first team All American.
I hear you on that. I look back to Keaton's year, and I mean, the guy had 10 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and that's only because of he blew up in the Miami game when Pitt just took over. Otherwise, he would have.
Jared Wayne blew up in the Miami game.
Very good way to put that.
Yeah.
The one thing I say about Phil is that when he had Frank Signetti, that guy was starting to figure things out. In 2020, his last, the full season, he had 17 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. I think that with him and Frank back together, and I think with Pitt's offensive line, which I think will hold up pretty well, and Pitt's run game, you're right. He's not going to, Penix didn't just throw 4,000. He threw 4,600 yards last year. Granted, it's also Pac-12, which is a completely different way of playing football than most other conferences.
He threw the ball 554 times last year.
Exactly. Pitt's not going to ask Phil
there
to
you
do
go.
that. It's just, and Keaton only threw it 315 times last year, but I still think that Phil will get a longer leash than that. But I still think he doesn't throw 400 times this upcoming year. I think that they run the ball, they have a balanced attack. But I do think where he can match Penix is efficiency. A 31-8 touchdown to interception ratio is very good. And if Phil can replicate that in a smaller volume, let's say
20 to 5,
20 to 5, 24 to 5, like somewhere around that, then you're looking at it and saying, like, you know what? This worked out pretty well, and I guarantee you the Panthers will win more games because of that than last year. So, and again, this isn't guarantees, but as far as I think his floor is right about where Keaton was last year, and I think his ceiling is maybe not Penix, but a more efficient version of Penix just with less volume.
His floor, I think, could be. I think his ceiling would be something along the lines of him being a day 3 draft pick.
Yeah,
maybe being like
he can work his way to it. He's got the size,
right? Yeah, I'm thinking like a 4th or 5th round pick, maybe a day 2, maybe like a round 3. I just think that his ceiling, I think he could be like what's his name? Got Peterman, like on Peterman's best season, he could be like that type of productive of a player.
Yeah,
maybe a little better.
The one thing I'll say about Jurkovec when it comes to drafts, like Nathan Peterman didn't have Phil's like built like Big Ben,
right?
Like
correct.
People are gonna be like, if he like I guarantee you, Pitt's pro day when he launches like a bomb, someone's gonna film that, and then it's gonna go on ESPN. I'm like, look at this guy's arm power throwing against air. Happens every year with some quarterback, and I think that someone's gonna get excited about his size, his arm strength, and again, if he just has the right amount of efficiency, I do think he could sneak his way into day 2 of the NFL draft next year because people want big-bodied quarterbacks who can launch it and also move, and I think that's Phil's profile.
That's also Penix, too. That's 100% going to be the guy next offseason who throws a ball 85 yards in his pro day. And people are like, you got to take him over Caleb Williams.
First round.
But we'll move forward now. Derek wants to know, is there reason to be more optimistic for football or basketball next season? This is a very interesting question. Do you want to start with this or shall I?
I'll start with this.
All right.
because I really feel like as excited as people should be for football, I think something's brewing in hoops, man. I think that we have seen. Uh, I think what there's to be the optimism for basketball is different because football. I think we have now seen Pat Narduzzi's culture blossom, and we have seen success from that. But I think we've seen that there. I think that the what's about to happen with Pitt hoops with some of the youth that they're keeping around, as long as Blake Hinson does stay here, the way we project, I think that there's something really special could happen with basketball very soon, and that could become something very exciting in the ACC, and something where Pitt basketball becomes a regular thing, and this isn't just a one-off there. So it's tough to gauge because they're different sports and different trajectories. As far as like football, you just don't have the postseason opportunity that you do in basketball. So I'm going to go with basketball simply because I think that there's a lot more question marks there, whereas I think football's kind of solidified itself to like, hey, we just had 20 wins in the last 2 seasons, and we still got all this depth that's churning up and coming up our depth chart there. So I think they're gonna be good. I'm not saying that basketball is going to be all that much better. I just think that basketball, the expectations, I think they will have an easier time smashing their expectations and leaping back into the tournament, and that will cause a lot more of an uproar. I think Pitt football will kind of end up where they were last year, 9-ish, 10-ish wins, and if they can win another bowl game, great. But I think it will be more of like the status quo for the last 3 years compared to where I think Pitt basketball is going to be. I think they're going to climb a little bit.
I'll go with football, simply because I think basketball's ceiling could be a little higher, but I think its floor is a lot lower. When you have that much youth in your backcourt, you can't overstate the value of veteran guards in today's college basketball, in today's world of college basketball. And I think both of these teams will have similar regular seasons to what we saw last year, where Pitt hoops will probably win around 20 games. I think if all goes according to plan, it'll be a bubble team again, and then maybe a little bit lesser of a bubble team because it doesn't have a 6-year cloud of being awful following it around this upcoming year.
Very true.
But I think football has a lot where last year, if it just had stability under center, that's a 9 or 10 win team. And I think it might have that this year. And again, I know I just said that Jurkovec's not going to be first team all ACC, but I mean, look around the ACC and look at the quarterbacks. That's not me talking bad on Phil. It's just there's a lot of really good quarterbacks in that league. Mm-hmm. But I think that Pitt can have one of, if not the best defenses in the league. I think it can have one of the best running games in the league. It could have one of the best offensive lines in the league. And if it can just have an average to slightly above average passing attack, there's a team that can win 9 games. And if you look at the teams on their schedule, if you win against Notre Dame, if you win against Florida State, if you beat North Carolina, those are 3 teams that are going to be ranked all year. And then if you look at other teams that are, you look at last year, Syracuse was a ranked win. No one expected Syracuse. You're going to have those unexpected opponents that are ranked. I think Pitt has a lot of opportunities to play itself into a 9-10 win season, which would get it maybe to the ACC championship game or a significant bowl game. So I just think the football team, if it can replicate its defensive success and its success on the ground last year, which I don't think is too much to ask, and just simply have a little bit more of a reliable situation under center, which I think it will, this could be a 9-win football team, which is, one of the better seasons this program has seen in the last 20, 30 years. So that's, I think, where there's more reason to be optimistic. Where for basketball, yes, there's a lot of excitement there, but just young talent in today's game, I don't know. And they're clearly banking on that. They're clearly banking on these young 4-star guards to run the offense and replace the big shoes of Jamarius Burton, Nike Sabani, Nelly Cummings, and Greg Elliott. And skill-wise, they might have that, but I'm interested to see how that all unfolds in late February, early March, where teams are really starting to find their strides, where these guys are playing in their first big basketball games at the collegiate level in their lives. So that's why I'll go with it. I just always try to go with the more experienced of the 2 units here, and football has a ton of more experience on its roster than basketball right now.
Mm-hmm. I know. I agree with that sentiment. I think the biggest thing I just see is that I think basketball has
the upside there is insane.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah,
because here's the thing. You got effectively 3 4-star guards.
Yep.
And if if one of them become a superstar and the others are good role players along, you still got the twins, you still got Fetty, you still got Blake. I think that it puts them right back into that conversation. And then we're talking about another March Madness run, and maybe they're that much better of a team. I think that that's going to. I guess I was framing this this question as more of a who will exceed their expectations more. I do agree that Pitt football has a higher floor than where I think Pitt basketball
Correct.
could end up. I just think that the ceiling that Pitt basketball has, with the talent, the young talent that they come in, and how quick that the opportunity they'll have to churn things up, I think that could be what propels them to something that breaks all expectations for what we had for Pitt basketball going into this season and beyond.
Carter, here's the other thing too: is that program seems to do well when people doubt it. So let's just say
True.
Pitt football, and then our fans get to witness another fun run.
There you go.
So
more Tesla driving.
Yeah, there we go. So Tony wants to know, and I love this question. ACC travel question: best campus, best food spot, and best sports venue. And if you can squeeze in one more, which we will allow, what's the most underrated place for Pitt fans to make a road trip to? Now, Carter, I did a little bit more traveling than you, so
yes,
I'll let you start off here. What do you got? Best campus, then the best food spot, and these don't have to be the same, and the best sporting venue in the ACC.
So it's tough for me to
you've
say.
Been to, yeah,
I've been to. It's tough for me to dig it too deep onto this. Like I said, I didn't do the traveling much last year, and the places that I've been to in the ACC, I went to Boston for Boston College. It was nice, but that was a smaller one. Florida State was an impressive campus. I was just very frustrated because it was hot and it was just a whole lot to deal with because that was the weekend of the 2020 election. Everything was shut down. But Miami was, I liked Miami's environment, but that again was a professional stadium. So it's tough to call that a campus. I'll say Florida State had the best food because they fed me pretty well there. Venue, I feel like my favorite that I've been to was Miami because of the stadium. I liked the setup there. Campus, it's that one's really tough for me to say because I've only been to a few actual campuses. I guess I'd go with Virginia Tech for basketball because we were there last year.
Yeah. All right. I took food as also like not press box food, but just food in that town.
I didn't think about
so
it that
I'm
way.
going to go best campus, in my opinion, is North Carolina. I think it's the best college campus in the country that I've been on. I've as far as just going to see friends at other colleges when I was in college, traveling for sports or whatever. North Carolina's campus is awesome. Best food spot, I would say the barbecue, anywhere barbecue on Tobacco Road, you can't really go wrong. Like if it isn't a chain and if they serve it to you on a metal tray with a piece of paper underneath it, it's going to be really good. So that would be my recommendation there. And then there's a cool wing spot in Atlanta too. I'm just going to leave it at that. And then for
Noah
sports venue, I'll go Cameron Indoor Stadium. Just a very surreal place to watch an athletic event. There's nothing like it really, I think, in college basketball. Just the history of everything that's taken place in that game, in that building, just with Duke and everything. Just really, really cool. But those would probably be my three. So North Carolina campus, food, any barbecue on Tobacco Road, and sports venue, Cameron Indoor. Makes it seem like I've only been to North Carolina. Best city to go to is Miami for sure. And if you're going to squeeze in a visit to an underrated place, I'll say Louisville. Louisville's a really cool city. I don't think the campus is that overwhelming, but if it's got a lot of really cool stuff to check out. They've got the Louisville Slugger Museum factory that I went to. I went to the Muhammad Ali Museum. You can go to Churchill Downs. And their facilities are really cool. I like their football stadium. Their basketball stadium is one of the nicer ones in the ACC as well. And you want to talk press food? That's by far the best press food that we've had aside from the ACC tournament. So yeah, I'll go with all of those for my answers.
I guess if I was to say one place that we've left out, Charlotte. I went there for the ACC
Yeah,
championship game, and I had a blast. That was a great food, great venue, great everything. If Pitt does get back to the ACC championship game, I'm very happy to go to Charlotte. So
there we go.
I had a great time there.
Yeah, North Carolina, just a great state. It's not too big, not too small. It's fun. All right, we move forward now to Mike with our final question. Carter Warren, Izzy Abanikanda, and Deslin Alexander are all going to the Jets, and it makes him wonder who is the best former Panther to ever play for the New York Jets, Darrelle Revis or Curtis Martin. It's kind of crazy when you think about it that probably the three best players in Jets history have a Western Pennsylvania connection, with Revis, Curtis Martin, and Joe Namath all being Western Pennsylvania guys.
Still has the most passing yards in a single season as a Jet quarterback.
Which is nuts.
Ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Right. And I think that record will be broken this year. Probably.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
Aaron Rodgers, he goes into a darkness retreat. We'll tell.
Yeah,
but anyway, back to the question.
Anyway, I think this is an easy answer, and this is no disrespect to your fellow Dragon.
Ice Dragon, baby.
Yes, but Revis is just, I don't think you can name three corners who are head and shoulders better than him that have ever played the sport. You can name guys who you might think are better, but there's a debate to be had with pretty much any name you throw out at that position, that it could be him or Revis. There's not anyone where there's running backs you can name. Barry Sanders was a better running back than Curtis Martin. He just was. Yeah. So was Walter Payton. So was Emmitt Smith. You could just go down the list. Jim Brown. Like, you could go down the list a little bit further. And again, Curtis Martin, all-time great, Hall of Famer, awesome career. But Revis is probably the most dominant cornerback since the rules kind of changed to favor passing in the NFL.
The one thing I'll say in Curtis Martin's favor is that record books wise, he's certainly up there. 6th all-time rushing still after retiring in 2005. That's ahead of LaDainian Tomlinson, Jerome Bettis, Eric Dickerson, Tony Dorsett, another Pitt legend, Jim Brown, Marshall Faulk. And the one thing that you could point at, if you wanted to point at anything with Revis, is that he didn't amass great interception numbers because nobody threw at him. Because
no one threw the ball. Yeah,
right. But he had 29 interceptions, ranked. That's tied for 233rd all time in the NFL. So that's tied with Joe Hayden. So if you wanted to go off purely based off of numbers, but as a person who loves watching tape and loves talking about, Darrelle Revis did so many things crazy that was just, you didn't want to throw the ball in his direction unless you had Randy Moss. And even then, sometimes it was a bad idea, as we saw with some of those Jets-Patriots matchups in the late 2000s there. But Revis, I'd say definitely is a better, by his position, is a better player. But I will say Curtis Martin did a lot of things really, really well in his career. Great legendary player, deserving of being a Hall of Famer, and still in the top 10. He's the 6th leading rusher of all time in the NFL. There's not something not to just to sneer at.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I just think Revis. I also might be biased because I was growing up when Revis was playing for the Jets. And I remember Curtis Martin playing in the NFL, but I don't remember the Curtis Martin Patriots days. That's the other thing too. I think that, both of them played for other teams.
Yeah.
And both of them definitely had the best years of their career in New York. But I think Revis probably was a better New York Jet because I don't know, did he play there longer or not?
I forget how long he was there, but
he was with the Jets from 2007 to 2012, and then for 2 more years in 15 and 16 as well. And then Curtis Martin, this is some great radio here. Curtis Martin.
Wait, so he was with the Jets. Well, this is kind of funny. In both the Jets playoff losses, they were both part of them. To the Steelers, they were both part of them. In 2004, when the Jets lost that crazy game with Doug O'Brien. I'll never forget that game, by the way. That was the game. The Doug O'Brien missing 2 field goals, and then Jerome Bettis fumbling, and him being heartbroken, thinking he was going to cost his team, and then Jeff Reed wins it. I think it was. I think that was that an overtime game, or is that just
it was game? It was Ben's first playoff win.
It was Ben's first playoff win. The offense was abysmal, but I remember Curtis Martin. I think that was one of the first times that something clicked for me as far as reading about players and how they deal with losses. And Curtis Martin was like, I left blood on that field, man. Like, I'll never forget him saying that and like feeling for like, dang, like the pain of losing is really when you put everything into it the way Curtis Martin did. And I think that that's one thing you can't underestimate about Curtis Martin is that man threw everything into his career. That was something that always resonated with me. But it's crazy to think Curtis Martin was part of that 2004 playoff loss the Jets had to the Steelers, and then Darrelle Revis was part of the 2010 playoff loss they had to the Steelers.
Yeah, Revis has a ring. I'll leave it at that too. I think that should be also. He didn't get it with the Jets, but I still go with Revis. They both played in New York for a while. I didn't know Martin was there for 8 years. That's a lot longer than I thought it would be. So I don't know. Overall, yeah, they both played there for 8 years. So very comparable in many ways. I just go with Revis as my final answer. Carter, any final thoughts?
Final thoughts is Curtis Martin would have had a ring if the Patriots didn't just go get Corey Dillon at the start of when the Tom Brady era started. I think it's because that's where Revis got his ring. He's like, let me go to the Patriots for a year. Cool, got my ring. Now I'm out. But certainly different eras. But no, it's always good talking. I'm intrigued to see how Pitt football continues in its recruiting. We got some interesting recruiting battles coming up. Some guys that are 4-star receivers getting looked at by Taekwon Underwood, who have listed Pitt in their top 6. We'll see how Pitt continues. But like I said, we're enjoying the spring where we're not having to deal with like our March where we were just hitting a city every week, every day, it seemed like at some point.
Yeah. Oh, well, we'll have your Pitt analysis here, all of your Pittsburgh sports analysis here on the Post-Gazette Sports Now YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already and keep tuning in. We'll be back again for next week with another Pitt mailbag.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you liked the video, please like it and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you enjoyed it on Apple Podcasts, please rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. For 6 months of digital access to post-gazette.com for just $6, click the link down in the description.